Hello again! Back to the adventures of Frank Einstein and the Antimatter Motor. So, last time we were reading, I was getting tripped up on a couple of words, like Dimetrodon. I did not know what that was, so you know what I decided to do? I looked it up. I looked up that word because my mouth was going every time I was reading it. And I said, I'm going to look it up. So I found out, I was thinking, oh, it sounds like maybe it's a dinosaur. So I looked it up and guess what? Not quite a dinosaur. It's not a reptile and it's not quite a mammal either. So it's somewhere in the middle. Now, at least I know more about it than I did when I first started reading it. So just so you know, if you ever find a word that's a little too big for you and you didn't know what it was, just have an adult help you look it up. And then you'll be a lot smarter than you were before when you read it the first time. So as you know, I'm reading this the first time with you, and I am learning all about Frank and his inventions. And the last time we read the story, what happened to Frank? He felt a little defeated. His invention didn't work. And when he woke up in the morning, there was an actual robot that had assembled itself. So let's go to page 33, chapter 4. It starts with the big letter T, and let's begin. The robot standing in the middle of Frank Einstein's laboratory nods. Yes, I am alive, according to at least one definition of your term, alive. I knew it could work, says Frank. The robot reached out his right hand. My name is Clink. I am a self-assembled artificial intelligence entity. Frank takes Clink's metal hand and shakes it. You built yourself? Yes, says Clink. That is what I said. If it were not true, I would not have said it. Frank scans the mechanical figure in front of him. He spots most of the bits and pieces of his smashed SmartBot, one webcam eye, the hose arm, GPS display. Also, a much more smash-proof shop vac body, with wheels and a handle. A better glass dome head replacing the toaster skull. All connected, rewired, and reassembled into a fully working, blinking, talking robot. But how? Well, someone must have built the initial neural net brain architecture. After that, all the system needed was a spark. I have calculated a 98% chance that you are the human who built it. I did? Says Frank. I mean, yeah, I did. Marvelous, says Clink. Are you being sarcastic? Asks Frank. Why would I use a word, adjective, to mean the opposite of what was said in order to insult someone, show irritation, or be funny? Wait, are you still being sarcastic? I would never be sarcastic. Okay, really. But Frank doesn't get a chance to decide if a robot can be sarcastic because he and Clink are suddenly interrupted by a big trash canister clumping around the corner of the workbench on metal. We've got to turn the page. We'll come back to this picture later. Feet crashing into Frank and wrapping its aluminum fleck duct hose arms around him. Human hug! You need a hug! I need a hug! Give me a hug! Another robot? Says Frank, lifted off his feet in big, excited metal hug. Obviously, says Clink. He is Clank, also self-assembled artificial intelligence. Clank smiles down at Frank. Amazing! Squeaks Frank, starting to feel a little crushed and breathless in the big robot squeeze. Clank, stop hugging, says Clink. Humans need to intake oxygen molecules. Clank unwraps his arms and drops Frank on the garage floor. Thanks, says Frank. Clink helps Frank back to his feet. But to be completely correct, I should say that Clank is mostly self-assembled, artificial, almost intelligence. Frank hears Clank's internal gears spin and whir. Satisfaction guaranteed. Clank required some help assembling, continues Clink. We had to make do with mostly leftover parts, so he has the brain of your Hug Me Monkey doll. Hug me! The memory of a cheap digital watch, huh? But mostly the heart of a Casio AL100R keyboard. 88 keys, 100 rhythms. Bump a bump bump! beats Clank in Mellow Jazz 1 as he picks up a bicycle wheel from the workbench and accidentally folds it in half. Oh, and the strength of 4 Abmaster Crunchers, adds Clink. Clank's input port lights up in what looks like a smile. Order now and save! Frank Einstein looks over the 2 robots in his lab and smiles at the electromechanical wonder of it all. Complicated networks of Frank's brain cells lights up with all kinds of ideas. So, your brains are constructed as neural nets? Yes, beeps Clink. And synaptically plastic to adapt and learn? Exactly, says Clink. Oh yeah, beep bump a beep, agrees Clank in Tango 2. Perfect, says Frank. He imagines Clink's and Clank's robot brains growing smarter by the second. He imagines all the other inventions they can help him with. He imagines jetpacks and space tubes and monster magnets and power rays and bionic body parts and multiple universes and hundreds more inventions and hundreds more questions. This is going to be amazing! Clank pushes a small button on his side. Knock, knock, says Clank. Oh, for goodness sakes, please do not start this again, says Clink. I knew I should have erased your memory hard drive before I installed it. Knock, knock! I know you're going to say something odd, and then I'm going to add who to it, and then you're going to show amusement that I have said something that I did not intend to say. Why would you do that? Knock, knock! I am not going to answer. Knock, knock! Oh, fine. Who is there? Boo! Boo-hoo. You do not have to cry about it. It's just a joke. Clank hugs himself and repeats a crazy ha, ha, ha laugh loop. Ding! Clink makes a funny noise and then says, in 100 yards, turn left. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, now look what you did. You triggered my stupid GPS bug, fumes Clink. Ha, 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 laugh loop, Clank. Ha, 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 recalculating route. Clink whacks his own glass head with his vacuum hose arm. Frank Einstein corrects himself. This is going to be amazing and very weird. And that is the end of chapter 4. Oh boy, this is going to be something. Chapter 5, page 42. I was just about to come get you, says Grandpa Al. Did you space out and forget what you went in the lab to get? Frank, standing empty-handed in the kitchen doorway, smiles. Toaster, appliance that converts electrical energy into heat, aluminum piece about this big. Grandpa Al teases Frank. Don't worry about it. We can find it later. Listen, I have to drive the truck over to the other side of town and pick up some stuff from the old factory getting shut down. Idiots are dumping perfectly beautiful machines I'd like to save. Can you and your pal Watson man the shop for the morning while I'm gone? Oh, sure, says Frank, still smiling. And I did forget the toaster, but you're never going to believe what I found. My truck keys? Guesses Grandpa Al, shuffling around the kitchen, patting his baggy sweater pockets, looking around for his lost keys. The missing remote? No and no, says Frank. Let me introduce you to... Frank steps out of the doorway and waves a hand toward Clink and Clank. Grandpa Al finishes his coffee in a quick gulp. That's great, Frank, but I don't really need the shop vac or the trash can right now. What I need are my keys. The shop vac's webcam eye dilates open and scans the kitchen. Keys are hanging from the nucleus of the carbon atom model. Ha! So they are, says Grandpa Al, lifting his truck keys off the lamp. Put them right there in the heart of the carbon so I wouldn't forget. Thanks! Grandpa Al freezes, then slowly looks back. Whoa! Did the shop vac just... Frank laughs at Grandpa Al's shocked look. Yes, he did! Grandpa Al, meet Clink, Einstein Laboratories' first self-assembled artificial intelligence. Clink wheels into the kitchen and shakes Grandpa Al's hand. Very pleased to meet you, Mr. Einstein. Your E = MC squared is most perceptive. Grandpa Al holds his head in both hands, his eyes open wide in surprise. What? Are you kidding me? Clink turns his glass-domed head. Do I look like I am kidding you? Frank, you did it! You made your thinking robot. Sorry about that, guys. Well, not exactly, says Frank. It made itself. A stray spark triggered everything. But Clink here is a neural net self-teaching thinking robot. Grandpa Al bends down to check out Clink. Very nice to meet you, Mr. Clink. I have to tell you, I am not that Einstein, but over the years I have dabbled in a bit of physics. Clank clumps suddenly into the room, wrapping both Grandpa Al and Clink in a big aluminum hose hug. Me too, says Clank. Love Al Einstein. Love matter changed to energy. What the? Says Grandpa Al, almost falling over. That's Clank, says Frank. More assembled artificial intelligence. Amazing, says Grandpa Al, still wrapped in Clank's enthusiastic hug. And they get smarter and smarter by teaching themselves? One of us does, says Clink. Clank, stop hugging. Beep beep, beep beep, answers Clank, happily in a polka 3 beat, unwrapping his arms from Clink and Grandpa Al. Clink reaches into his storage compartment. He pulls out the toaster pieces and calls up a repair diagram. In a world of exact motorized movements, Clink releases the toaster in 10 seconds flat. Grandpa Al plugs in the machine and pushes the lever. The heating element hums on and quickly turns a bread toasting orange color. Beautiful, says Grandpa Al. What else can you fellas do? Clank grabs the coffee can off the kitchen countertop. He squeezes the can in a crunch of ground coffee and crumpling metal. He shows off a ball of aluminum, steel, and zinc. Beautiful, yes? Says Clank. Well, begins Grandpa Al. We'll work on that, says Frank. Okay, Clink and Clank, let's go try some experiments out back. Grandpa Al nods, but then goes strangely quiet. He peeks out the kitchen window and checks the downtown Midville street. Frank, he says, remember how we talked about some people using science to learn more about the world and some people using science for power and money? Sure, says Frank. You are an amazing scientist, but you have to be careful. Other people out there might want to use your science and these robots for who knows what. You worry too much, Grandpa. Well, I've seen too much. I knew some of those guys who worked on splitting the atom. Grandpa Al taps the bulbs at the center of the carbon atom light fixture. They figured out how to release massive amounts of power by shooting a neutron into an atom, splitting that atom into smaller atoms, and creating a chain reaction of neutrons, splitting more atoms, and making crazy energy. Clink projects a diagram of a nuclear reaction. Yes, I can do that. No! Grandpa Al grabs Clink's hand before he can start assembling anything. That's what I'm talking about. Firing that one teeny neutron into a large atom can make something helpful, like a power-generating plant. But it can also create something incredibly destructive, like an atomic bomb. Clank volunteers. I can combine match heads and ammonia to make a stink bomb. Yes, no, says Frank and Grandpa Al at the same time. Oh, yes, he can, Clink reports. He simply mixes H2S plus 2 NH3 to NH4 to S. Grandpa Al snatches away the matchbook Clank has pulled from a drawer. The science is good. It's the stink we don't want. I get it, Grandpa. We'll be careful. And we'll watch out for any suspicious-looking scientists. But this is going to be so big. Grandpa Al watches the two robots investigate the kitchen, taking in every detail. Well, you'll win the Midville Science Prize for sure when you show up with these guys. I thought about that, but I can't enter the robots. I didn't exactly make them. They made themselves. Frank thinks for a second. And anyway, I have a million more inventions they can help me build. Oh boy, says Clink in a more robotic voice than usual. I can hardly wait. Frank gives the smaller robot a look. Clink pretends he doesn't see Frank's raised eyebrow. Oh boy, says Clank. Okay, says Grandpa Al, not sounding at all convinced that anything is going to be okay. Just be careful. I'll pick up those machines and be back around noon. You and Watson will be okay till then? Watson, says Frank. I can't wait to see the look on Watson's face.